Today we'll be doing the 15th video on the Latvian Gambit, and the Latvian Gambit is a gambit that we use to develop the F file very quickly. And in this particular case, white controls the d4 square throughout the entire game pretty much. In fact, it becomes kind of a problem, and we're going to analyze how and why, because he pushes to d5 early. So this is something that we need to worry about in the Latvian Gambit. And it says we should consider castling either side. And in fact, what we're going to discover is we did castle queenside this game. So without further ado, we can see that already in this position, after number 2, f5, white is considered by the engine to be a pawn up. So this is the normal progression of book moves. The right move is knight to c3 here, and white opted for d5 right away. Now this is a very strong player. This player is rated a couple hundred points above me, blitz-wise. So this was kind of an interesting choice and a novelty that I hadn't seen. And I do get this out of these players once in a while, and as you can see, it's not a bad move. The question is, how do we really respond to it? And the computer says we should just go queen to g6 or queen to f7. So I do neither. I protect it with the bishop, which is not the best move. So I consider to be knight to a5 here is a big nuisance move for white. And the computer only considered it briefly. It says knight to c3 is correct instead. And so I also missed a shot where I could have moved knight to d7 and done a little better than what I'm getting here, because once he moves bishop to e2, then I lose the g6 square for my queen because of the pin, queen to king. So he does go there. And for the next few moves, I believe the machine suggests that I should move queen to f7 over and over and over, which I do not do. But it's something to keep in mind for the future. Basically, it's providing a better square for the knight and positioning the queen in a little bit of position while maintaining the pressure down the f-file. So now I'm preparing to castle queenside, and he's preparing to do some damage if I castle queenside. So obviously, the computer wants me to move knight to b6 here, but I want to castle queenside, and I'm kind of get the one-track mind about it here. So I'm going to make a move that I make in a lot of Latvians, and that's a6. And a6 has a particular purpose in mind. For instance, if he moves queen to d2, then we've limited his ability to hop around with the knight once we push the b-pawn. But this player is also trying to think about preserving his queenside castling possibilities, but at the same time is worried about b5, and obviously has some problem with the knight, because if his knight ends up on, say, a5, then I earn the e5 square for my knight. So then I begin to build an attack down the center and to the king side. So he prevents it by moving a4, which is not a bad move, and he still has an advantage. And once again, the computer's begging me to move my queen to f7. Instead, I move knight to e5, which is a problematic move. So as you can see, what happens is I have a little bit of a problem if he captures it, because if I capture with the queen, then I'm in danger. I have a problem with my g7 square and his bishop going to d4, so I have to recapture with the pawn, which is what happens. And yet I recognize that was going to be a bit of a problem. So what I see, pardon me, in this particular case is a number of things. Number one, these double pawns may look weak, and they are an island, but I have actually freed up some space for my bishop now on a diagonal, and I've taken away the d4 square again. In a sense, now I control the d4 square, at least from occupation. And if I do castle queenside, I would really hate to see, his queen coming to d4 or the like. So now all of a sudden, those double pawns in the middle are exerting some pressure, and I'm actually fairly happy with them. So the computer says white's still up 3/4 of a pawn, and now he makes this odd queen move, and I'm not sure what that's designed to do. I think he thinks I'm going to move my bishop, and then he's going to prevent me from castling queenside by moving bishop to g4 or something. I don't know. Actually, that would be g5. So computer wants me straight away to move queen to g6, because now there's no skewer on h5, because his queen's moved and there's no support for it. So That would put a temporary question to the ability to castle kings for him because of bishop to h3. I just go ahead and castle queenside. And now, lo and behold, computer says I have equality. And white's best move is move his queen yet again to b1 and start pushing pawns. So he castles. And finally, I do move queen to g6. And now we do have an actual threat of bishop to h3. So the question is, what's he going to do about it? And he moves his rook. So his idea is to protect the g2 square with a bishop on f1, which is a flawed idea. Now he moves his rook again. So why wouldn't he just have moved his rook before, to that square? I don't know. Now the computer is begging me. It says I actually have an advantage by starting to push my h-pawn. I should be pushing my h-pawn all the way to h3, apparently. So instead I move my knight, allowing a capture, which he doesn't do. And now, interestingly, it wants me to make a capture on e3. So I actually don't like that idea. I don't want to bring his queen up into play, because if I do that, then I got to move my king to b8 to prevent him from coming to a7, and I'm just like a sitting duck for things like b4, b5. So even though the computer says it's strong, I don't see it. So now he moves b4, and my initial plan was if he pushes b5 to push a5. And then I noticed a little too late that he can go all the way to b6, and I can't move c6, and then his queen sitting back there, and he's going to start opening up on me. And as I assessed this more carefully, I came to the conclusion that I couldn't really allow that I would be lost. And so when he pushes b5, I capture, which is the incorrect thing to do. I should be moving knight takes h3, almost panicking into a situation like this. So instead I capture it, and this should lose the game, because he should be able to play knight takes b5. And knight takes b5 is a superior move from the standpoint of, if I eventually do get, he can check me, for instance, on a7 and then go to c6, and then my bishop's loose on e7, and it creates a nightmare of a situation to try to defend. So I made a bad move there, and I shouldn't have allowed him, but fortunately he made the wrong recapture. Now he's still trying to push b6, and now I go into full panic mode and take, and in fact now b6 is both a defensive and an offensive move. It's a necessary defensive move to prevent the push, and it's a great move from the standpoint that I'm going to secure the c5 square for my bishop, and he should be trying to prevent that, whatever he does, and he fails to prevent it. So at this point he moves his rook to the corner, and as all of a sudden he's lost. So in a position like this, just two moves dictated an incorrect recapture by white and an incorrect attacking move by white went from a one game to a completely lost game. So we'll show you how the rest of this game comes out. I don't usually miss this kind of attacking move, so. And now the game's over because there's a mate. So, and yes, this game ended in a mate, and the fact is it's completely resignable at this point. And I think he played it another move or two. So that was today's Latvian Gambit.